carving new horizons, making your place in a world full of limitless opportunities and endless miracles, all waiting for you patiently just beyond that horizon. There may be times where you feel like the path to your future is just beyond your reach, like a distant dream. But there are people here to teach you the horizon isn't really as far away as you might think it is.
Entrepreneurs, authors, singers, directors, co-founders and dreamers, and people who stood their grounds and reached their goals. We promised you a sliver of hope in the middle of these trying times, and that is exactly what we bring to you. Get ready for some amazing speeches, mind-blowing performances, excitement, and a lot of learning and fun in technology, entertainment, and design. Hello, and welcome everyone to TEDxMEC 2020. Thank you all for joining us here today. To kickstart off this day, we have with us Alaina G Levine, the founder and president of Quantum Success Solutions, a career consultancy service. As a world-renowned speaker, she is adored for a unique sense of humor and has delivered over 700 keynote addresses all over the globe, and is also a speaker at the prestigious Grace Hopper celebration. Having authored a book and various articles, she is just as talented with a pen as she is eloquent. Today we have her here with us, talking on how to create your unicorn career from scratch. A hearty welcome to you, Alaina.
Hello, my name is Alaina G Levine. I'm president of Quantum Success Solutions, and I am so excited to be here with you today to talk to you about a topic that is near and dear to my heart, and that is the idea of how we can create our own unicorn career. Your unicorn career is a customized, specialized career that you create yourself. You do so out of joy and to honor yourself. That's a very important part of it. It is customized to your unique skills and abilities and expertise. It is specialized, specifically designed to give you the meaning and the impact that you want to have in the world, in the galaxy, and in the multiverse. It is about honoring and allowing us to express our full, authentic self 100% of the time. I'll be talking more about that idea, but I want you to remember that if you want to design a career that makes sense for you, that allows you to solve problems that bring you intellectual joy, use skills that are like chocolate and cupcakes for your brain, you have to be a servant to your own authentic self. That is a key part. Your goal in life is to do projects, to solve problems, and to add value to communities that serve those communities, that allow you to have the most impact, the most meaning in your life, and to do things that actually are aligned with your own values and the way you view your mission and objectives in your career. This is not only a possibility, but it's a probability. We all can create a unicorn career for ourselves, even within traditionally existing structures, such as existing companies, universities, and research institutions, nonprofits, and other types of ecosystems and organizations around the world. The idea here to create a unicorn career that allows us to have the intellectual joy, that allows us to solve problems that bring us pleasure, and allows us to have meaning and impact that serves our authentic self and allows us to express ourselves in the most creative and productive way possible, is to always be looking for problems that you can solve and value you can add. Remember, the job search process, the job exploration process, is never about what you, the job seeker, can get from me, the decision maker. It's the exact opposite of that. It's about what you, the job seeker, the career planner, the unicorn career designer and strategic professional is doing to create opportunities to advance the community, to solve problems, to give rather than take. It's very, very important as we think about our career planning to always look for ways that we can actually make a difference and add value as opposed to taking. When you do that, when you adopt the spirit of generosity, you can create a career that meets your needs, and it allows you not to have to sacrifice even a corner of who you are. This is something I learned the hard way and the long way. You see, here I am today. I'm a professional speaker, a corporate comedian, a science writer. I'm an event planner. I wrote a book called Networking for Nerds. I love to do many different types of projects, and I've built my career and my business to allow me to do those things. But throughout my career, throughout my life, I knew that I was very interested in having meaning and impact in my life. I knew what my values were, but I always thought I would have to sacrifice a piece of me to be able to get a job, to be able to do a project, to be able to work with an employer or a collaborator. And I realized that's not the case. We never have to do that. Yes, we have to make money. We all have to have money to pay our rent, to pay for food. If you're like me, you have a substantial cupcake budget that you have to pay for as well. But there is still a way to generate income and be able to have meaning and to honor your authentic self. Throughout my life, I've had 4 threads that weave together to form Alaina. I've always been interested in business. In fact, on the first day of kindergarten, when I was 4 years old, I brought a briefcase to that day. I was the top salesperson of magazine subscriptions in my choir in high school. I love selling, I love marketing, I love the concepts of distribution and manufacturing. I've also always loved communications. I love speaking, I love writing. I've been drawn to the stage. I've been on the stage since I was 5 years old. I've been involved in all manners of performing arts, including comedy, my entire life. And most interestingly, I've also always been passionate about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. In fact, my degree is in mathematics, and I have another degree in anthropology. I love science. I love the concept of engineering and mathematics. I thought, as I planned out my career, that I would have to choose one of those threads as my career and then design the others as hobbies. I would have to sacrifice a piece of me to build a career where I would be paid, where I could get income, and I would still have meaning. And so I majored in mathematics, and I figured all those other things would be hobbies. But what I began to realize with this was that's not necessary. We can actually design a career if we are honest with ourselves, and if we put in the forefront of our brain exactly what our goals are, what our values are, what's our mission to be on this planet, what is our desire, what do we love to do? If we are honest and clear with ourselves, we can create a unicorn career. And that's why I'm here today with you, wearing exactly who I am, being exactly who I am, wearing sparkly purple eyeshadow, because that's who I am. And believe me, I am grateful, and I understand the significance that I was able to create a unicorn career for myself. But I'm not the only one. My good friend, Brian Malu, is a science comedian. He has combined his love of science and comedy. He's worked as a comedian. He continues to build his business as a science communication trainer and an interviewer and a writer and a presenter in the science and comedy space combined. I've interviewed a dancer, Merritt Moore, who has a PhD in quantum optics from Oxford University, who is a professional ballerina. She combines her love of physics and dance. I know a baker who has a background in chemical engineering. I know somebody who's worked in the race car industry as an engineer because he had such a great love of racing and engineering, and he was able to design a unicorn career that allowed him to solve the problems he wanted to solve and be his authentic self. This is the promise of pursuing your unicorn career. It's all about defining success for ourselves. In fact, one of the first fundamentals of designing and launching a career that is a unicorn career for ourselves is recognizing that only we get to define success for ourselves. That's an important part. Nobody else gets to do that. Then another fundamental is understanding that you have power and choice to pursue whatever career you choose to be. As long as you're not hurting anyone, you can help everyone. You can make an impact in the way that's meaningful to your heart, to your head, to your spirit, to your mind. This is part of building the idea of what is success for us. You have limitless potential because the reality is that your lived experiences, your diverse lived experiences, the skills you've gained, the knowledge you've attained, all the networks that you have built and continue to build, all of that gives you extreme power in the career planning process. You can design a career that makes sense for you because there is limitless potential. That means that you have to have vision. I realized this idea about vision early on in my career because as I was graduating with my mathematics degree, I began to realize, you know what? I thought I was going to become a professor of mathematics or work as a mathematician in a research institution. But I realized that, number one, I don't like to do mathematics research. And of course, that's important to know if you're going to become a mathematical researcher. I don't like to do that. What I love to do, what I find just great joy and bliss in, is communicating the importance and the value of mathematics and other STEM fields. So it was science communications, but I didn't have a name for it at that time. I went to my mathematics advisor and I said, Dr. Mathematics, hey dude, I was super classy, so I didn't say hey dude, but for you, I gotta say hey dude. Hey dude, what else can I do with my mathematics degree? I've majored in the language of the universe. There must be other things besides being a mathematics professor or researcher. And my mathematics professor, Dr. Mathematics, turned to me and used the word nothing, to describe my career prospects. How is that possible, ladies and gentlemen? In all of the history of the universe, and of course, as the universe continues to accelerate in its expansion, and maybe one day it crunches in on itself, there has never been and never will be a job for a mathematics major. That's what my advisor was telling me. OMG, mic drop, how is that possible? You know and I know that's not possible. But this is where the vision comes in very handy. My mathematics advisor was like an ant in a two-dimensional plane. He only knew what he was educated and trained in, so he didn't have perspective or access to other types of information, other data points that would help inform his advising of me, to help me see that there were many other jobs, limitless jobs for somebody who had studied mathematics, just like there is limitless jobs for somebody like yourself who's interested in X and Y, who studied A and B. Like an ant in a two-dimensional plane, he only knew the tenure track as a mathematics professor. I had to have the vision. I had to be able to say, wait a second, as a third dimensional being, I can see connections. I can see bridges between different fields, different ecosystems, different disciplines, different industries, and certainly different jobs. And I had to have strength and courage, just like you, to be able to move forward and say, wait a second, this doesn't sound right that there's only one type of job for a mathematics major. I'm going to look into other things. As I moved forward in my career, I began to become what I encourage you to do, which is a career entrepreneur. A career entrepreneur is just like a business entrepreneur. They look for problems that have not been solved. They look for walls that are impeding innovation that they can help knock down. They look for pain points in systems they can help alleviate. And I was very mindful as I started my career in science communications to look for those gaps. It didn't come at first naturally, but I developed the skill set. You have to look for those gaps in systems. Where are the pain points? And once you identify those pain points and those gaps, you want to start thinking to yourself, is there a way that I can help alleviate those pain points? Is there a way that I can help knock down those walls and help innovate in new and novel, exciting ways? That's part of building a unicorn career. And that's what I noticed. In my particular case, I saw that for mathematical majors and graduate students in STEM fields, there was a significant lack of career education and curriculum. Nowhere in any abstract algebra class did I get any knowledge or advice or information about how to look for a job, plan a career, and be successful in that career. It wasn't discussed. I saw a pain point. I saw the pain point, and then I realized with my expertise in soft skills, which I had, and my love and my skill set of speaking and in presenting talks and using my comedy to engage audiences, I could fill the gap. I could solve a problem that would add value to a customer, to an employer, to a collaborator who would invest resources in me. That's what we do when we build a unicorn career. Unicorn careers, we have to identify where the problems are that have not been solved and ask ourselves, what can we do to solve that problem? How are we uniquely positioned to solve that problem? And you know how we do it? We do it via data collection. Very easy data collection, but it's ongoing throughout our lives. We start with data collection that is intrinsic to us. We download from our brain onto a piece of paper a chart that you can create for yourself, an inventory of all the different experiences you've had in your life. And an experience is simply something that gave you experience in solving problems and gaining skills. So it could be a job, an internship, a project in school. It could be something that you did in your community, in your religious organization. Any experience is valuable. I list out all the experiences and then I start thinking, downloading from my brain. Okay, what were the technical and what were the business skills I gained? What were the soft skills I gained? What were the attributes about myself that I noticed that I'm very detail oriented and I work well with a large team? And most importantly, what did I love about that experience? This is empowering and invaluable data for you to have, because if you know what skills you have, if you know what skills you love using, if you know what problems you have solved in all of these different experiences, you can then start thinking about the second set of data that you want to collect. And that's the extrinsic data, where we're investigating the ecosystems where we would potentially thrive, the organizations where we could potentially add value, the collaborators, the partners, the people in the different communities around the world who would potentially want to hire us to solve a problem for them. This type of extrinsic data collection comes from networking. And remember, networking is not what can I take from you or how can I manipulate you dishonorably into giving me a job or an opportunity. No, it's the exact opposite of that. Networking is about what can I give you? How can I add value? How can I move the agenda forward for your organization, project, and team? And if we think about networking that way, we recognize that networking is about building long-term. We're investing in a long-term relationship, long-term, mutually beneficial alliances where we're both providing value to each other. When you think of networking in this way, you gain access to a lot more data about pain points. And you can ask people, what are some of the challenges you're facing? What are some of the problems that you have really enjoyed solving in your career in this organization? How did you get into this career? How did you find your way? What skills have you especially appreciated when you started, in the middle, and as you move forward? What's the career path like? Ask probing questions so you can gather that data about the career paths, the ecosystems, and be visionary for yourself. If you have an idea that I love baking and I want to use my expertise and my love of baking to share the idea of science and engineering mathematics with kids, you can create a baking company. You can start as a baker and start building a career where you're developing baked goods and baking items, confectionaries that maybe even have chemical equations on them or chemical images on them. That's what somebody that I interviewed had done. She was a chemical engineer who loved baking and she pivoted her career into a unicorn career for her that combined those two things. You have to have vision. The last part of designing and launching a unicorn career goes back to this concept of authenticity, that when we serve ourselves, our full selves, when we recognize what it is we love to do, what it is that drives us, how passionate we are about X and Y, even if X and Y seem disparate, seem like they cannot find a connection between them. When you do that, when you serve yourself in an authentic way, you are actually doing something very significant for your community. Because when you are your authentic self in a unicorn career, you are your most productive, you're most creative, you're your happiest, you're joyous. You are providing value in a way that is optimal, and you are doing the best that you can to change and improve your community. That is a very generous act. So it's interesting to me that when we serve ourselves by being our most authentic self and being honest with ourselves, that we want to build a unicorn career that is unique to us, that allows us to achieve our goals and solve the problems that bring us joy. We are serving ourselves, but we are actually serving our community. Because when you engage in this type of generous unicorn building creation, you are not only serving yourself, but you're serving everyone else. You are making a difference because you are your most productive. You are your most creative. And that is, I think, the magical and the most exciting thing about building a unicorn career for yourself. When you do the things that bring you joy, that bring you meaning, you make everybody's lives better. You serve all of us. And don't we all need assistance right now, especially? So here's to your unicorn career, your exciting, customized, unique career that you design for yourself with your bravery, with your strength, with your vision, and your talent and your skills and your abilities, and with your 100% authentic self. I look forward to seeing your purple sparkly eyeshadow when you launch your unicorn career.
Thank you so much for your wonderful speech, Miss Alaina. You've helped us learn so much from it and opened so many new doors of opportunities, and we enjoyed it so much. So thank you. Now, our next speaker. What began as a simple decision to use office space to conduct computer classes for children in the nearby slum turned into an organization with over 2,000 volunteers that reaches more than 1,600 children's lives. Mr. Ajit Sivaram is a co-founder of one of India's biggest volunteer-driven charitable organizations, UNI, and our guest for today. Passionate about leadership, social change, and helping people achieve their fullest potential, here to speak about how to change the world in 3 simple but not so easy steps, we have Mr. Ajit Sivaram.
Hi, my name's Ajit, and I'm excited that I get to spend some time with you talking about how to change the world in 3 simple but not so easy steps. Now, before I go any further, my mom always told me to never talk to strangers. So let me quickly tell you a bit about myself so that we can get to know each other a bit, and then let's get right into it. Right? So this is my absolutely gorgeous, lovely family. I've got 1 wife and 2 kids, Tanya and Anya and Thea. Anya and Thea are obviously named after their mother, and they are the cutest girls in the world. I'm slightly biased, but that's absolutely okay. And during 2020, which has been a tough year for all of us, and I'm sure that for a lot of us, it's been a year of loss, it's been a year of pain, it's been a year of hardship, right? And through this, I can testify to the fact that my family has been my strength and my rock, and both Anya, Thea, and Tanya have been my absolute joy in this time. My larger family, the UNI family, right? UNI is one of India's fastest growing volunteer organizations, and we are excited about the decade to come. And I'm love that I get to share a bit about UNI's story with you today as we talk about how to change the world in 3 simple but not so easy steps. So let's get right into it, okay? Step number 1. The first thing you want to do when you want to change the world is to actually just find your cause, right? You want to find your cause because in your cause lies your why. It's what wakes you up every morning at 5 a.m. It's what wakes you up in the middle of the night with new ideas. It's what you go to bed dreaming about, right? When you find your cause, when you find that thing you're passionate about, right? It really drives you. It makes you do things which the average human being wouldn't. And the good thing is there are so many causes out there today, right? There are causes, so right from education to environment to hunger, there are so many causes worth pursuing and worth making a difference in today. So right, whether it's from city infrastructure to our oceans to racial injustice, I mean, there are so many causes which we can take up and run with today. And I understand sometimes the fact that there are so many causes actually could be a difficult thing to handle. And I definitely experienced this growing up. Because as a young person, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I was clueless. Because I came from a good Andhra family where everybody was a software engineer. My dad, my uncle, both were software engineers. My cousin Sandeep went to Stanford. My other cousin Ranjana, she went to RV and eventually worked with Cisco. My aunt used to work in a computer institute. And my brother, my own flesh and my blood, he also went to Carnegie Mellon and became a computer engineer. So there was this entire family, and I was the only one sitting there in the corner having no idea what to do with my life. Well, at least I was clear on one thing. I knew I wouldn't become a software engineer because for me, the only thing which had binary in my life was my report card, and that was a lot of zeros with a few ones. So then you had to ask the question, what was I good at and what did I want to do? Well, I was half decent in English, and you still had so many other options, and all of them left me equally clueless. But I think one thing that was true for me throughout my childhood and going to college was that I knew I wanted to help people. I knew I wanted to figure out some way in which I could be a blessing to others. I just had no idea how. So then I did what every self-respecting Andhra kid would do: go abroad. Went down under to a college nobody had heard of, and studied in a course on leadership and theology, which everyone wondered why. But it was in my time there when I actually started working with young people from disadvantaged backgrounds. These were young people who were coming from broken homes. These were young people who came from abusive families. And it was when working with these young people and helping them find a sense of identity, helping them figure out where they wanted to go, what they want to do, that I found what I want to do. I found my cause. When you find your cause, you realize that life has a bigger purpose. You wake up every morning fired up and ready to go. That's the power of finding your cause. Number 2 is find your tribe. Now, as much as this has been a year of social distancing and staying in our own little bubbles, I think it's showed us all that we are social animals. We're not meant to be islands, right? If you look at it, you'll see examples of it everywhere. Bikers all roam around in gangs, right? That's why Harley has a biker gang, because they want people to do things in community, right? In so many different areas of our lives, whether it's our friends or going for treks or on vacations, we want to do things in community because they're more fun. We enjoy them and we actually learn from each other on the journey, right? And it's not just between us. You look at in all of nature, right? You see it. Giraffes have a tower. You see it with there are herds of cows. We're built for community, right? We're not meant to be islands. At UNI, we often say that people actually join for the cause, but they stay for the community. They stay because they find people that they align values with. They stay because they enjoy working together. And I experienced this for myself back in 2010. For me, 2010 was like everyone else's 2020. It was a tough year. It was a fiery year. It was a year full of fireworks. And I actually got fired, excuse the pun, in 2010. Right, and so I was back to square one. I had no idea what I wanted to do, what the future held for me, and it was at that point that with 8 of my friends, we started volunteering together. And we actually, one of the couples in the picture, Satish and Jenny, ran their own business with computers free in the evening. So what we did was we started teaching kids from a nearby lower income community computers, because obviously I came from a long line of computer engineers. And then we also started teaching them English because I was half decent in English. And it wasn't just us. The more we did this, the more we found that other people also wanted to teach kids. Other people also wanted to help kids. Other people also shared the same values that we did. And the tribe started growing to a point eventually it grew out of Bangalore to multiple cities across India. I had found my tribe. When you find a community of like-minded people who are passionate about the same cause you are, who align with the values that you have, you've found your tribe. So find your cause, find your tribe, and number 3, ladies and gentlemen, is to find your jam. Now I'm using the word jam simply because I want to seem young and cool and hip, but what I actually mean by this is to find your role, is to find your place, is to find where you fit into this tribe serving this cause. So when you're finding your role, you want to start from a place of understanding that different people have different ways of getting involved, and that's absolutely okay. Not everyone has to do the same thing. That's one of the huge learnings from running UNI, is that everyone will get involved in the way that they feel comfortable, in the way they feel like they contribute the best. You want to get involved in the way that you feel that you add the most value, that you contribute in the most. And that's key to this. So I found 4 ways in which people can contribute, and I took it straight from the TED website. So you have 4 types of change makers. The first set are doers. These are people who love getting their hands dirty, who get in and are actively involved doing the work on the ground. These are the ones who are actually teaching the kids, actually cleaning the garbage, actually painting the school, whatever it is, right? These are those bunch of people. They are extremely enthusiastic. They're on the front line. They're the ones helping with COVID relief. These people are magic. They're fired up and they're ready to go. The second group are suppliers. As suppliers, we're all about finding resource, raising funds, figuring out how to get the doers what they need to do good work. I love this role as a supplier because you're sort of in the background, you're not in the forefront, and you're really empowering those in the forefront to do the best work they can. The third group are influencers. Influencers are people who have a voice. Now I know Instagram and YouTube have made influencers a cool thing, but the truth is influencers always existed, right? You could be the leader of an organization, you can be the president of a welfare association, whatever it is, you may not even need a title to be an influencer, right? As long as you have a voice and you can convince others and you can bring other people and you can align people around a cause, you can get people excited and people listen to what you have to say, you can be a great influencer. Another way of influencing is through media, is through telling stories. And there's so many ways in which people can get involved and create change by being an influencer. The fourth group are the innovators. And these are the people who have the ideas that change the world. I mean, when you look at the plethora of problems facing us as a society today, we need more and more ideas. So innovators are the ones who sit down at the table and say, you know what, let's figure out solutions. Let's figure out creative ways in which all of these people can help. Let's figure out creative ways to raise resources. Let's figure out creative ways in which we can do our jobs better and change the world. So there you have it. 4 incredible groups. You've got doers, the suppliers, the influencers, and the innovators. Over the last 10 years of leading you and I, we've had to do all of these. We've had to be doers, we've had to be suppliers, we've had to be innovators, we've had to be influencers. And it's such an exciting journey. Find your jam, find your role, find your fit. And then when you combine that with finding your tribe and finding your cause, you really are ready to change the world. If I was to quickly rewind to that classroom where we started with 8 kids, a few of us volunteers teaching these kids. What we did was we found our cause, we found our tribe, we found our roles, and then we kept at it. We kept at it and we kept at it. Where today when you look at you and I, you have change makers, you have volunteers in 26 different cities all across India. This year we started volunteering in Shanghai, in Singapore, in the US. We've partnered with 95 centers across India where our volunteers go every single week to teach, to mentor, and to give these kids a better hope and a better tomorrow. We've had over 10,000 different volunteers, and we look at the 4 different roles of innovators and doers and influencers and suppliers. We've had easily over 40 to 50,000 people be part of the movement. Even during the pandemic, where it's been tough, where volunteering has been absolutely impossible in person, we've been able to work with an incredible team to help over 40,000 people, all with volunteers. That's the power of finding your cause. So when you look at what's up ahead, we know that our mission is to build a community of change makers. We want to build communities across India, across the globe, of people who are passionate about changing the world. As you find your cause, as you find your tribe, and as you find your jam, may you change your world, because you and I can be the change. Thank you and all the best.
Thank you, sir, for instilling a sense of duty and goodwill in us with those wonderful words. You've inspired so much of us to work towards being better people. So thank you so much. We loved having you. So next up, you are all in for a treat because we have some amazing performances coming your way. We have the winners of MEC Unplugged, the open mic competition conducted in association with Maritime, the official music club of MEC, with some absolutely mind-blowing performances. So first up, with an instrumental playing electric, It's Only Smiles, we have Nikhil Jitsachi. So stay tuned for some amazing tunes and welcome Nikhil.
Wow, Nikhil, I must say that was quite a banger. Wow, I am thoroughly impressed by that. As I'm sure the audience are as well. Thank you so very much for that, man. Now let us get on to our next speaker though. Oneal Sabu is a maritime lawyer by profession, but having worked a multitude of roles in the culinary field, this food enthusiast now does food blogging as a passion through his Insta handles FCboy and his Facebook page Soul Fried Monologues. He is also a core member and active contributor to the concept food group Eat Kochi Eat. He is, however, not here to talk about food and make our mouths water. He is here today to speak on something a lot more intriguing than food. Welcome, and over to you, Oneal Sabu.
Hi guys, my name is Oneal and I'm a food writer, and I've been asked today to speak on Carving New Horizons by the TEDxMEC team. And it's an honor to be here and to speak to you about a few things that I've done differently from what I see around me. So that's the idea. So let me first talk about things that we all know, which is about food. So what do we know, what do we see, and what we feel and what we perceive about food? All these are subjective. Everybody has their own opinion. Everybody is a food blogger in their own realm. But for me, it's much more or beyond what we see, what we perceive. And that's why I've actually stuck to certain beliefs that I believe in, and I hope it works for you as well, because I'm not your motivational speaker. I'm not gonna try to motivate you. This might demotivate you, because if you're doing things that's actually working for you and I give you a different picture, it might demotivate you. But the idea is you'll have more questions at the end of this whole speech of mine. You'll have more questions than answers. I'm not here to provide you answers. I'm here to provide you certain questions that you need to think, you need to actually analyze and maybe put into your life. So that's the idea. So what I've done here is, when we're saying carving new horizons, is for me, it's about staying real, staying raw, and staying unprocessed. And the same way, you could too. Everybody is talented in their own way. Everybody's gifted, and everybody has their own gifts. So people don't realize it until a certain point. Like, I'm a former lawyer and a restaurateur, and then in between I was a writer as well. I published a book. I'm an author, and right now I'm currently working on a book. So based on that, during the lockdown I did some videos called Lost Recipes, which is basically about forgotten recipes, and that's how I got enough notice. So the first thing that we're dealing with today is this whole point about notice. So I'm comparing it with the 7 deadly sins, and the first of it is greed. So when we come to greed, I'm talking about notice. Now you have content, you have a content with you, and you want it to have notice. You tag people as much as you like. You want attention, but do you want that kind of attention? That's the idea. You want notice. Your content is what you should believe in. If you try to perfect your content and you put more time on your content, see, that's the kind of greed you need to have. So when I analyze greed, and you see a lot of food bloggers, food writers, they tag other people to get notice. Maybe it might help a few people, but it might not help everybody. And it's also annoying, to be honest. When you get so many tags for things you're not related to, you wonder why does this person want to seek my attention? When I'm sitting in a place where I'm doing something about food and somebody else tags me, I don't know that person. Why is he or she tagging me? So it's inconclusive. You don't do things that's inconclusive, because again, this is something that I try to avoid, not tagging too many people. So that's greed for me. Now moving on to the next one, which is sloth. Sloth is, for example, now we all know, we all go to eat out, and we see something, and we see what the menu says, what the chef says to us. That's the information that is there on the face. The menu says, mind it too. Which is, you need to mind what you see on the menu. If you don't apply your brains, your mind, your analysis, your thinking about what the chef is saying. Suppose the chef tells you that, you have gold in this soup. And then if you're not able to tell that there's actually no gold in it, then it's difficult. You're actually fooling your audience by repeating verbatim what the chef told you, or what the management told you about that gold is there in the soup. So that's the idea. You need to analyze. For that, Google is not the place. You can't validate information on Google and Wikipedia, so you need to research. If you don't research, you can't assess. You just make an ass of yourself. That's why I try to avoid that. You do not speak about things you don't know. You need to actually educate yourself as much as possible, research on what it is, and do not go by face value. If you see something, yeah, I know you need to taste it to believe it, but you also need to analyze why it's delicious. You can't simply say delicious to your audience, or you can't simply say I don't like this. You need to justify why you don't like it or you like it. That's what I try to avoid, which is sloth. To sleep on what you know. You need to always educate yourself because things are changing, so you need to change accordingly as well. And the next one that I'm talking about is envy. Now, it is a possibility, or it is actually relevant today, because you compare yourself with somebody you know, some other blogger, some other writer, some other celebrity, Instagrammer, whoever it is. You do not compare your content with theirs, because that's regressive. That's not progress. You don't progress from where you were before. You want to improve from yourself. What you were yesterday, you don't want that to be repeated. You want to improve on what you were yourself yesterday. So that's what I believe in. You compare yourself to what you were before and then improve on it, instead of comparing yourself or your work with others. See, what works for them might not work for you. It's not like that, because I stick to what I do best, and I don't let Instagram analytics to come in my way, to tell me to do things to please an audience, to do things repeatedly, to encourage monotony. I don't do that. I don't believe in mundanity, to repeatedly do the same thing. So I try to improvise or improve on what content I give my audience, or anybody should do the same thing. And that's why you envy your potentials. Believe in your content and work on it. Improve on the same thing and be better than what you were yesterday. That's it. You don't need to be aiming for the Ks, 100Ks, 200Ks, 250Ks. That's not an approval for your content. That's an approval for people who like you, or maybe not even people, maybe bots. No idea. There might be brands who are looking for you and the bots want to find it. So that's the idea about Instagram analytics. If you go working with Instagram analytics, the whole passion drive is lost. You came here for some purpose. You wanted to explore your passions more. You wanted to write more. You wanted to analyze food more. You wanted to think about food. You wanted to actually give a different perspective about food, the one that you know, and then you get influenced. So that's why you do not compare yourself with anybody. Regardless of where the position you are right now, if you were better than yesterday, then you are doing something right. So that's why envy yourself instead of envying others. So the next one that we are talking about is gluttony. Now, gluttony is something that I do not endorse, even otherwise. In terms of being a food writer, I do not endorse gluttony. Mindful eating, that is very important. Now, in terms of what we are analyzing right now, gluttony is when you get cheap thrills and stomach fills by doing content that is repeatedly monotonous and doing the same thing over and over again, because you believe it worked for somebody else, so it's going to work for you as well. Now, that is wrong thinking, because it's the same thing. It's like somebody posted about a shawarma, for example, and you want to post the same thing. You actually forget that before Instagram, before social media, how would you go to a new place? You don't need an invite to go to that place. You hear about a new place. You don't want a blogger to tell you that this place is there and you need to go there. Yes, it's good for visibility in terms of, like, say, you get to know there is a place there. But you would create a drive uninfluenced. You want to create the same kind of drive uninfluenced. So you don't do the same thing. If you want an audience that is not fake, that is appreciative, you give them different things. You don't give them the same thing. If you are comfortable doing just one thing alone, you don't progress. How can you achieve progress yourself as a person individually by doing the same content again? Because you will be good at doing only that thing and you will have an audience only for that particular thing that you focus on. So you move away and drift away from your passions. If you wanted to be a good food writer, that's not what you should do. You should give a different picture for everything that you do. It's not like, you can talk about one particular thing. For example, if you talk about Kerala food, since I'm from Kerala, we see a lot of food bloggers. That's not the only thing that you can talk about. You can work on other cuisines and you can talk about them too. And that's why, in terms of repeatedly doing the same thing, I actually consider it gluttony, because you are avaricious for more followers and more likes, and your content is driven in that way now. Instead of focusing on your passions, you have drifted away from what you want to do, what makes you happy. So I wouldn't do anything. See, that's the thing, that I would do things that make me happy, because that's more important. See, this Instagram is a whole rat race. If you're going to compare yourself with people around you and how many Ks they've built in over a small period of time and what's worked for them, and you are taking analysis, you're studying somebody else. Spend that time studying yourself and improving yourself instead of studying what patterns work with others, because that's the same thing. It's monotony. Monotony is for the weak. So you want to strengthen yourself by not comparing yourself with others, but compare yourself with your content that you used to do and how far you've improved. It's good to look back onto your Instagram handles or your Facebook or your YouTube and see how much you have improved, with or without the help of technology, but by building your knowledge. So that's gluttony for you. So that's one thing that I avoid. And now the next one, which is what we're talking about, the next deadly sin: pride. Pride is when you've established yourself as a good food blogger or a food writer or anybody on Instagram. You can find lots of public figures on Instagram nowadays. Anybody and everybody claims to be a public figure. But if you have an audience, for example, that actually appreciates your content, appreciates your work, then you don't ride on that pride. Okay? Like I was saying before. Now, there have been instances when you are actually consumed by your fame that you wait for a new place to invite you to go there to eat. You do not actually, you forget the fact that you're a foodie, you're a food enthusiast. If something new has come to my city, I want to try it. I don't want a blogger to tell me, yeah, this is so good, this is delicious, this is wow, this is excellent, whatever. I would follow a few people who would tell me exactly what it is. Like, for example, if it's not like we all watch MasterChef, like say somebody would be saying, oh, this is a bit under, like Gordon Ramsay. But you can also look at other people as well. There are so many other shows you can combine. Like there's Netflix, there's so many other series that you should actually be educating yourself on, and so you can speak to your audience on the same thing. See, this is something very, very trivial, something basic that everybody does. But apart from all this, apart from what is actually given to you by an influencer, being uninfluenced, you can research on your own as well. You can find out what it is, because that is more important. Remember days before anything, Instagram or social media, if somebody was doing something specific, there would be a competition, or there would be a certain sort of a special TV show or something that you watch that captivates you to that person. And that person would be telling you his experiences. Now, that is something that you used to do before Instagram. When it's Instagram, there's a lot of information, there's a lot of misinformation, disinformation, and you don't know what to choose from. So being different is very, very important. And that's why when you talk about pride, don't ride on this. Because education is what separates you from being there forever. So if you've reached the top, if you are number one, if you've got what you want, give it back, so that you stay there and you don't come down. That's why that is very important. That is the most important sin that I avoid, which is pride. Now for the next one, which is what we're talking about, is wrath. Anger. Control your anger. Everybody tells you. Now, I'm not a psychiatrist to tell you that. But wrath is something that is another deadly sin, which is basically when the power of a review. Now, when somebody actually claims to be a food reviewer or a food blogger, the power is misused. Now he has verified attention. You have so much attention that it gets to you, that you only have time to build an audience. You have time to make content for your audience, for your following. You want to make them happy so that you sustain there. Now that's not the way you sustain at number one. Because what you're doing is you're not giving back to the industry that supported you, which is by taking your wrath, your anger on them. You know your review is powerful. So what you do is, like everybody, like Google and TripAdvisor and Zomato and whoever it is that gives you the power as a common man to review a place. But there are certain ethics that you need to follow. There are some responsibilities. Now, if you've cross the levels of food blogger, food writer, and become a restaurant consultant, or you claim to be a restaurant consultant, then it's even more important that the first thing you do, basic as a restaurant consultant, is to inform the management before you inform your audience. Because, follows and likes are always going to be there. If you make good content, it's going to be there. But if you're going to be talking about negatives, you know what? You create a thread of negative and hate comments. You are promoting something that's not required. You actually work to the detriment of the industry, because you're not giving back to the industry what they gave you. Because of these places being around, you go and eat. You, as a foodie or a food enthusiast, is a very common person who actually goes and eats out. You want places to survive. So for that reason, if you're a restaurant consultant, I agree. For everything that you're good at, you need to be paid. But there are certain things that you can actually tell the management first and see how receptive they are to their feedback. If they're not receptive to the feedback, yes, you can engage your audience in the same. But unless they're not receptive to their feedback, what you're doing is absolutely not required, which is basically saying something negative. If you have something to substantiate, you need to justify why it's negative. And that's why your anger should always be at bay. Wrath can be taken on many ways, but do not misplace somebody's business or disrupt it by your actions. You have to be responsible. Now that is a time you become even more responsible than you were before, because you're dealing with a lot more people, and so many people from different parts of the world is going to see you. When they view you, you want to paint a picture that's exactly the same that you felt. How do you do that? Yes, I do it with writing. That's why I call myself a food writer. But for a blogger, it's easy. You can take a video, you can put it, you can start a hate comment thread. That's what happens. But that's what you should avoid. I think you can actually nicely put it to your audience as well. Because there are negative comments. Restaurants are supposed to be receptive about it. But the way you explain it makes a lot of difference. So you can't be prima donna all the time. It's like you're unquestionable. No, you are questionable for your actions. Like, for example, I see a lot of people writing on their bios, DM for collaborations. Has anybody actually asked you how much business in return? So as long as they don't ask you that, and as long as Instagram does not require you to validate your information through footnotes, you can pass whatever information you like. And that's why so much of content is misinformation and disinformation. And you've all seen the social dilemma. So you know what to believe, what not to believe. So the same way, to your audience, be honest. Be honest to your audience. Tell them what actually it is. Now, the last sin that I'm talking about is lust. Now, this is the most interesting of all sins. Lust. What do you lust for? It's a very strong emotion. What do you lust for? Obviously, everybody wants to be famous, popular, and a celebrity on Instagram. Now, if you are going there not to pursue your passions, but to become famous, then this does not apply, because you can keep lusting for it. So for me, I've put it as Vox Populi, Vox Desi, which is basically what works with every blogger in India, which is the voice of the Desi. You go to the streets. If you're in Delhi, you cover a chole bhature, chana chaat, whatever it is, and you put it on your feed, you get a large audience, because people invoke nostalgia out of this. If you come to Kerala, it's beef fry and parota, and you talk about Malabar Arabic food. So that's the idea. You get more likes for this, but it's mundane, it's monotonous, it's repetitive. It's not gonna give you anything except for followers and likes. That was not the purpose for you to take to Instagram. For me, at least. I took to Instagram to be real, to be raw. Now, there's a private life I enjoy as well. That's not something on Instagram. That's not something that's supposed to be on Instagram. Everybody has their own privacies. And I don't want to disrupt somebody else's privacy. The same way, I do not paint a picture of what my personal life is. Like, if I have to smile, it should be a smile that's coming out of me. It's not like for me to show off that I am some rich snob activist, sitting there on my dad's money. I wish I could do that. I mean, like, I wish I could just go to places, smoke up, do whatever I want, and just lay back and relax. But I don't have that. You need to work to obviously make money in this world right now. When we have been affected by the pandemic right now, and everybody has lost their disposable incomes, it's become extremely more difficult for writers. I mean, freelance writers like me. And it's become extremely difficult for a lot of people who are downsizing their employees, and there are a lot of freelancers around. So, how do you stay unaffected? If Instagram is your happiness, do what makes you happy. If that's where you find your happiness, do things for your own happiness and not to please an audience, because the audience is going to go again. It's not going to be like forever. You need to work. You need to put enough work for you to sustain it at the top. So that's something that I actually believe that everybody forgets. What's their own purpose. Like, for example, if I just keep promoting desi food about, only the things that I see, then I'm a frog in the pond. I'm just staying there where I am. I don't go out. Even birds fly out of their homes, go to different parts and then come back to say home is the best. That's why you don't want to be a frog in the pond. You want to explore things. You don't have to necessarily despise everything Western. That was done before independence to get rid of things which were British at that time. But you don't need to necessarily do that. If you actually want to portray a different thing or be different, you actually go and study about it and then talk about it. If you don't know how to talk about Western, just don't talk about it. I mean, that's what people should avoid. Do not pass information that you're not, sure about. There is so much of misinformation you don't want to add to it. So if you want to talk about Western food, you need to. But you don't need to despise it completely just because you don't know about it. Work on it, work on yourself, and then I'm pretty sure you will also be able to talk about Western food. So, like, if you take a scenario of the chef schools in India, you ask any graduate where he wants to be. He wants to be working abroad. He doesn't want to be working in India. He doesn't know how to cook regional food. He's forgotten the importance of what he's eaten at home. He wants to do Italian food. But you should also imagine the fact that an Italian restaurant or an Italian chef from Italy, he cannot come here and cook a biryani or a beef and parota the same way as you do. The same way, if you go out, they're going to be asking you first to cook your own food. If you are a person who's wanting to do well in the food industry, you first need to be knowing your basics, but you need to progress as well. It's your ambition to learn Italian food. But first, you learn what you want. But that's it. You should actually reach a level where you actually grow out of it. Not just desi food. Go appreciate every kind of food, every kind of culture. See, that's what makes the difference between, being monotonous, being boring, being repetitive, and being different. Now, I'm not doing anything that is, something very great and successful. I can't say I've been successful in what I've been doing, but I've been different. All the way, if somebody feels that I'm different, is because I do things differently. It's because I focus on doing things differently because I have a lot of questions inside me. The same way, today, after listening to me for around 18 minutes, maybe you might not be motivated. You might be demotivated if you've been doing things that I've been addressing in this as steadily since, and you feel demotivated. Ask the same questions to yourself. Question yourself, question your abilities, question your, when you're actually competing for real, for a competition, for a youth festival, if you've done it, if you've, during your college days, during your school days, you would be at your competitive best. You would not put substandard content the same way. You want to be at the best, so that's why I make content that is not necessarily limited to Instagram. It should be beating what's there on TV. So that's how I make content. That's how we think differently. Because you want to give a picture that nobody's ever painted. All right, thank you so much for allowing me to speak on this topic. And I hope you had, at the end of the speech, at least got to know my name, Oneal. Happy eating all.
Thank you so much, Mr. Oneal, for such an interesting and informative session. Your words had a lot of impact on all of us and gave us a lot to think about. So, thank you. Next up, our speaker has developed 3 apps related to psychology, has his own podcast, and recently published a book of fiction. Mr. Bhasker Malu is Assistant Professor of Psychology at Christ University and is here to talk about his experiences in learning to never limit himself. Please welcome the up-and-coming author, podcaster, and our next speaker for today, Mr. Bhasker Malu.
Hi, I've been teaching psychology as an assistant professor for around 5 years in India. But my real tryst with teaching began as a 6th grade student when I was 10 years old while I was a student at a boarding school called St. Paul's School in Darjeeling. Just to give you some context, St. Paul's is almost 200 years old. And for every new visitor who walks into the school, they feel like they are at Hogwarts because the teachers are all walking in suits and they have their academic gowns. The buildings are built out of massive stones and the roofing is all picketed. It also has a massive sprawling campus. You might have seen the school if you watched Bollywood movies such as Meuna or Barfi, both of which have been partly shot there. Now, in a boarding school, generally the concept of taking tuitions doesn't exist. So the students depend on one another in order to advance their learning during their self-study hours, or what we in school used to call as the prep time. This is the classic application of Vygotsky's concept of the more knowledgeable other, also referred to as MKO. And during the exam week, I was one of the many MKOs. For 7 years in school, I taught every subject possible, with the exception of Hindi, which I was abysmally bad at. I taught math, I taught geography, I taught physics, accountancy, economics, and even literature. And literature is something that I don't understand till this date. But having taught it, I feel that all of this experience that I had in school for those 7 years is invaluable to me in terms of the academician and the teacher that I am today. All of this has contributed greatly to me being able to teach competently. And after 5 years of teaching, I also must admit that teaching inside the classroom is probably the easiest aspect of being a teacher, because there are so many other nuanced and subtle facets that go into teaching. And I was to discover this truth quite quickly, actually, because I was fresh out of masters when I got my first job. It had been just a month between the transition from a master's graduate to an assistant professor. And on my first day, I walked into this class full of enthusiasm and idealism of wanting to make a change and change the world. And in the first 10 minutes, I was met with the unkind realization that this is not as rosy as I thought it would be. Not because teaching is not great, but because there are other facets inside the classroom. I'll just give you an instance. On that first day, I turned around to the blackboard and I was drawing the structure of personality in the shape of an iceberg given by Freud. And I heard a boy snigger to his friend behind me and verbally direct an abuse at me. It was meant to be a whisper, a quiet giggle that you do between your friends, but as happens often, we murmur a little too loudly, and in this case, for that student, unfortunately, everybody in class heard it, including me. And now I was on the spot because I had to react. I felt like an eternity was passing between me turning around and talking to my students, but which was just actually a fraction of a second. And in this time, my mind went through a cascade of scenarios of my time as a student, which was a month ago. There were moments of disrespect that took place inside a classroom that I was reliving, and the cruel realization that now I was on the other side. But thankfully for me, my experiences in boarding school had prepared me for this event, because there was an extraordinary event that took place in school when I was in the 11th standard. Because when I was in the 11th standard, a friend of mine was suspended by the school authorities because he lost his temper and he hit another student. Now, something like that is not acceptable, and therefore the judgment of suspension was passed by the rector. But the rector, after passing that judgment, got up from his chair, walked to my friend and just hugged him. They hugged for, I think, a good 10 minutes. And both of them were crying by the end of it. And the rector told my friend, I know you lost your temper, and I know you are full of remorse for what happened, but I know that you will come out of this better and more in control. And that makes me happy for you. This suspension is just a blip in your journey. Do not let it define you. I know you will make me a proud teacher one day, so just go and come back a better person. Now, this was the kind of thing that inspired me, that would have inspired anybody, I think, and probably has played a great role in me becoming a teacher and wanting to inspire my students to do better than they are. And unfortunately for me, or rather fortunately, on that first day, I was faced with a similar situation where I was abused by a student. He didn't mean to abuse me directly. It was supposed to be a passing phrase, I think, but I heard it, and I had two options in front of me. One, to take him to the principal, scold him, get him suspended, or to follow the lead of my rector. I chose the latter, and I think I will always continue to choose the latter. So I looked at my student and I said, you know, why did you feel the need to abuse me? And he said, so I didn't abuse you. And I said, everybody here heard it. And I'm not going to punish you for this. I'm not even angry at you, because you abusing me doesn't mean I have to take it personally. I don't need to feel disrespected. All I want is for you to grow out of this. So maybe you can think of a reason why you felt the need to abuse me instead of, denying the charge. And then he just began looking down, which was sort of him telling, that accepting his mistake. And I said, it was a mistake. I understand it was a mistake, and it was meant to be a whisper. It came out a little too loudly, and here we are. I'm on the spot. But I want you to take this as an opportunity to introspect, right? Think of why you found it necessary to abuse a stranger, especially since this is the first time you and I have met. But anyway, now it's your choice. You can go to the washroom, wash your face, come back and sit down, or you can choose to sit out for this 1 hour and come back next week. We have work to do, we have things to learn. And that was that. The matter was over. I had dealt with it. But when I reached home that day, I felt utterly incompetent, because I had walked into a classroom thinking I will educate people and I will make a difference in the world. I was forewarned quite rightly by some of my teachers, saying that it won't be easy, and that sometimes students might act smart, but nobody had told me that something could be this extreme. Nobody had told me that I'd have to face something like this. But that made me think of something else altogether. Why was I not trained for this? Why wasn't I prepared for it? I knew how to teach, but why wasn't I prepared for anything else? Why was I not required to complete a certification program to teach? And as time passed, I began to realize that there is more to this profession in terms of building courses, developing assignments, having evaluation rubrics, all of which is very scientifically created and researched. And yet, we do not have proper certifications as qualifications to teach. I was even building an entire master's program for a university with my colleagues with zero training on the methodology. And over the years, I've spoken to enough first-time faculties to know that they share similar trepidations. And what makes it worse is that this isn't limited to India. This is true for most places in the world, where people become lecturers in higher education institutions, they have a PhD and they have some experience as teaching assistants, and then they are expected to do a great job inside a classroom. They do have experiential learning, no doubt about it, but where is the theoretical foundation that's required? Why isn't it necessary for people who are being trusted to educate young people to have one simple 1-year degree in education? In India, for the higher education, you need to have a B.Ed, but for higher education, for high school, pause. Okay, I'll just continue. In India, to teach in high school, you need a B.Ed, but in higher education, you don't even need a PhD. You need to give one exam, that is NET, which has 5 questions about teaching aptitude out of 150 questions. And if you pass that, hurrah, congratulations, you're competent to be a educator. And this feeling of incompetency, I reacted in the best way that I could. I delved into literature on education, teaching and learning, and student engagement. And as I read more about them, I began to see the wisdom of the ways in which I was educated back at St. Paul's. I'm sure the 200 years of history played a massive role in the development of traditions that helped to educate us in multiple ways, especially outside the classroom. Things like positive teacher-student relationships were always encouraged. They knew that this sort of relationship builds affinity, and a continuous interest in the student's life will predispose them to be attentive in class. And if they just do it just because they don't want to disappoint you, that's good enough. At St. Paul's, we were allowed to discuss our teenage issues with our teachers. The teachers worked as proxy parents for us, and they did this outside their class time. They did this on their own time, and this was because we lived together. We grew up as a family. Of course, there were the teachers who were unapproachable, and there were some who played favorites, and just a bunch of them whom you couldn't talk to. But they were the exception. They were not the norm. And they recognized that we were kids who were still growing up, and they needed to provide us that sort of scaffolding. Although we did think that we were big boys then, but to be very honest, now that I look back, I just realized that I wasn't. Actually, none of us were. And the fact that they showed interest was important to us. I remember when I was struggling with economics early in my 11th grade, Mr. Mandal spent extra time with me when he could have been home with his family, just so that I could understand what fiscal policy really is. And there is enough consensus in research to tell us that if the teacher-student relationship is solid, then the learning will always advance. And now as a faculty at a university, I try to build the same kind of personal relationships, although it's slightly difficult because we don't share the same campus, and the students that I teach are obviously older, but by no means have they fully figured out their lives, and that is where I try to help them. One of the things I like doing inside a classroom is to walk around. If there are like 5 minutes left of my class, I like to walk around the class and just make conversation with everyone who's willing to. I want to know about their dreams, I want to know what their goals are, I want to know where they come from. I tell them where I come from, what my dreams were. I ask them what they're watching on Netflix, and why they have not sent me a request on Instagram yet. And by the way, Instagram is a fantastic place if you want to know what the young people are up to. And I usually also pay special attention to kids who don't seem to have too many friends inside the class, or they feel isolated inside the classroom, because who could understand what loneliness is better than a 10-year-old kid who found himself all alone at night in a dormitory full of strangers, right? And this sort of thing is very important, because what I do with these kids is I shift their places, something that is permitted in Indian higher education. I shift their places and I make them sit with kids who are kind, who are warm, and generally very talkative, because it might create space for some innocuous interactions to take place that may build peer relationships, which is equally important in terms of educating young people. My students appreciate this immensely, and they have told me so multiple times that they feel like paying attention in my classes because I show an interest in their lives. It has now come to a point where these people who I've taught 5 years ago will message me about life events that take place. Things like when they're getting married, when they're trying to apply for universities abroad, they'll ask me to appraise university courses, and so on and so forth. Some of them even update me on the latest millennial term going around. The last one I heard was called Stan, which was basically someone who's a massive fan of yours. So it's quite interesting. This sort of relationship builds a human aspect to education. So in that sense, I've always seen my role as an assistant professor from a slightly broader perspective of that of an educator, or more of a holistic educator. This is what my university also has as one of its major goals. The greatest impact from St. Paul's for me comes from the school's motto, which is Moniti Meliora Sequamur, meaning having been advised, we follow higher things. And for me, there couldn't be a better way to live. And I try to inculcate this in everything I do as an educator. For instance, I remember when I was having coffee with a colleague a year ago, and we were sitting and we were just discussing about, is this all we're going to do? Is this all that students will come year after year? We will go into classrooms and we'll talk about the same old theories which are 100 years old given by Freud, and they will get educated and they will leave. Is this all that we're going to do for the next 30-40 years? And then he said, no, there is research that is exciting. I said, research is exciting, but research is not inside the classroom. Like, you're not collecting data or analyzing anything or writing anything inside the classroom. You're teaching still. Don't you feel stagnated? And then he concurred. He said, yeah, I do feel stagnated. He was teaching for 6 years at this point. So we figured that maybe we try and do something else. Maybe we go and try and educate a larger corpus of people. And then we thought the best way to do this was through social media and educational technology. So we try to basically maximize our capabilities as educators. And this was before the pandemic came in. So the first thing we did was we learned how to code. We were 2 psychology students with no knowledge of coding, but we learned how to code. We built the Summarizing Psychology app and the UGC Net Preparation app, and an app to learn SPSS. And then a few months later, we realized that this is still slightly hands-off. It's still information being given to only psychology students. We need to inform more people about different concepts. So to disseminate information in a clear and easy way, we built the One Stop Psychology podcast and an Instagram page, which today has close to 8,500 followers and 2,500 listeners on our podcast. And the two of us weren't very interested in social media. We weren't active on Instagram until then. And this is a big badge of honor for both of us, seeing that our content is being appreciated. This also had a cascading effect on my students who saw me doing so much with my life. And then they approached me and said, sir, why don't we talk about football? One of the things in India that is missing is a decent podcast on football. I was initially very hesitant about this because as a professor, I'm supposed to live through this certain amount of dignity, and football fans are full of banter. So I didn't know how I could mix that. But then they said, why do you want to be so restricted? You are passionate, you love the game, why not talk about it? And because they knew me well, they said, you think Richard Feynman would have rejected something like this? And that was that. Feynman is the inspiration for my teaching life, and I knew he wouldn't reject such a chance. So having been advised, I said, yes, why not? And just like that, the Talking Barefoot podcast was born. The Talking Barefoot in that name is a play on the fact that India played the 1948 Summer Olympics barefoot. And in my pursuit of broadening my horizons, I keep seeing my students trying to do new things. I've seen some of them come with new TikTok videos, and they are on Reels, and they're on YouTube. And all of this is a work of hard work at the end of it. I've even tried to write a novel, which I've finished recently, which is inspired by my life as a boarder in St. Paul's, called Homeward Bound. Now, the truth is that I'm not nearly as successful as it might sound. It might seem like, wow, he's doing so many things. It is true, but it doesn't mean all of these things are doing well. But that doesn't stop me. That doesn't dampen my spirits at all. All I can do, I know, is try. I think that's really all that all of us can ever do. To give our passions and dreams some flight. I love teaching, and that's my primary identity. I'm inspired every day to get up and be a professor, but I refuse to just be defined by it. And that's my message to you. Refuse to stand still, because legacies aren't built that way. Take a risk, give yourself a chance, and nearly everything is possible if you're slightly brave. Or as Feynman would have said, nearly everything is really interesting if you go into it deeply enough. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bhasker, for those beautiful words. You really did propose a deep and impactful message, and we sincerely hope to imbibe the same. Next up is once again another performer, or rather actually this time it is two performers. We have with us Advait Imperial and Navneet S. Nair, who will be performing Eastern vocals and instrumentals. So over to them now. Do enjoy.
നെഞ്ചോട് ചേർത്ത് പാട്ടൊന്നു പാടാൻ പാട്ടിൻ്റെ ഇണം നീയാണ് കാണാതെ കണ്ണിൽ അറിയാതെ നെഞ്ചിൽ വിരിയുന്ന ചിത്രം നീയാണ് നീ വരൂ ഈ പാട്ടിൻ രാഗമായി നീ തരൂ ഈ ചിത്രം വർണ്ണമായി ഹൃദയം തൂകും പ്രണയം നൽകി ഞാനും നിലാസന്ധി തിരികെ നനയും മിഴികൾ നൽകി നീയും എങ്ങുമാഞ്ഞു നെഞ്ചോട് ചേർത്ത് പാട്ടൊന്നു പാടാൻ പാട്ടിൻ്റെ ഇണം നീയാണ് കാണാതെ കണ്ണിൽ അറിയാതെ നെഞ്ചിൽ വിരിയുന്ന ചിത്രം നീയാണ് കാറ്റോട് മേഘം മെല്ലെ ചൊല്ലി സ്നേഹാർദ്രമേതോ സ്വകാര്യം മായുന്ന സന്ധ്യേ നിന്നെ തേടി ഈരന്നിലാവിൻ പരാഗം എന്നെന്നും നിൻ മടിയിലെ പൈതലായി നീ മൂളും പാട്ടിലെ പ്രണയമായി നിന്നെയും കാത്തു ഞാൻ നിൽക്കവേ എത്രയോ ജന്മ
am not kidding when I tell you this. You guys really had my hairs stand on end there. Exquisite performance, guys, exquisite. That is sure to stick in the hearts of our audience for quite a while. Thank you so very much for that. Now let's move on to our next speaker then, Ashwati Venugopal. She is a social entrepreneur and co-founder of Avasarashala, a child welfare organization that has been internationally recognized as one among the top 10 purpose-driven innovations by Bridge for Billions. Ashwati has been recognized as one among the top 10 social innovators from India at the Youth Collab 2020. She is the recipient of the Eastern Bhumika Iconic Women Awards 2020 and was one of the chosen speakers at the Changemaker Exchange Collective Action Summit. With a million more accolades to her name, Ashwati is nothing short of a superwoman. But what might take your fancy is none of this. Rather, it is the fact that she went to the exact same building in Thrikkakara that you and I go to. Yes, she is an ex-MECian. So to talk to you about following your passions through opportunities, I invite Ashwati Venugopal.
What if? How many times have you imagined your life with an entirely different story? An alternate story where you chased your wildest dreams, where you pursued your unbridled aspirations. An alternate story which almost always starts with a tantalizing what if? What if I tell you that such an alternate story to your life really exists? What if I tell you that the decision to grab the first opportunity opens the door to new possibilities? Just like many children from a middle-class family in India, I too followed the fail-safe recipe of an engineering and an MBA degree. During my MBA, for the campus placements by Amazon, I wanted to stand out. An online course, a project, or anything that would set me apart from the rest of the applicants and give me a chance to crack it. The search got me into a different space altogether of international leadership programs and fellowships. Trust me, I was surprised at the number of avenues that existed for youth out there. Why didn't I even know about these before? After a few unsuccessful applications for various programs, I finally got into the initial phase of the Kechtel Youth Leadership Program based out of Atlanta, USA. I was so happy I could put such a differentiating factor into my resume for Amazon. And I did crack my dream job at Amazon. But I pursued the year-long online leadership program for Kechtel as well. After 1 year, I was one of the 27 youth selected from across the world to be part of a week-long leadership conference at Atlanta. Even at this point, I was not able to understand how can this opportunity create any difference in my life. Through visa processing, explaining the situation at work, convincing my family about the travel, there were these moments where I felt, is it even worth all the trouble? But I let the domino take its course and finally take me to Atlanta. This was my first ever international event. It was a fully funded program, and all I had to do was travel over to Atlanta. It felt surreal, and the experience I got there was beyond what I had imagined. I met leaders like Martin Luther King III. I met his young daughter who already had a vision to make a change in this world. I met other youth leaders who came in from different parts of the world just like me. I was interacting with colleagues who were change makers, an entrepreneur of the year from South Africa, Peace Corps, advocates of hygiene, mental health, humanity and inclusion, global policy. There was this moment while I was sharing the room with these young leaders when I felt, what am I even doing here? How did I get here? And then a second thought came in. What if? What if I could do something beyond my corporate work? What if I could aspire to make a dent in this universe? Until then, the terms change making and social impact were just fancy words meant for someone else. But sitting in that room with highly driven young people, I started to believe that maybe it is possible to aspire and dream beyond the realities I had set for myself. One thing led to the other. I returned with a clarity to step out of my comfort zone and pursue social entrepreneurship. I co-founded an organization, Avasar Shala, which connects thousands of children with aspirational opportunities that may potentially change their life. Kettle Youth Leadership Program was just the beginning for me. Today, I have been part of numerous fellowships and international leadership programs like Vital Voices Grow Fellowship, We Do Changemakers Asian Rising Star. I am an Indian ambassador for Digital Grassroots Program, Youth Internet Governance Forum India Fellow, recipient of Eastern Bhumika Iconic Women of 2020 Award, Top 10 Social Innovators and People's Choice Awardee at Youth Collab. My work has been recognized as one of the top 10 technology-driven innovation trends of 2020 by Bridge for Billions and among top 30 most inspiring digital innovations at Parthos, Netherlands. From a person who was satisfied to live within a self-constructed bubble, now I totally wiped away all boundaries for myself. And it all started with one single opportunity. That single decision to try a new experience has opened the door to an alternate story of my life. I realize that many of us are too busy designing a life following fail-proof paths right from our childhood. Seeing how much an opportunity has changed my life, I try to make sure children around me get access to their first opportunities. We connected a class 6 student to her first international STEM and innovations program, where she became a finalist. Now she is actively participating in various similar programs, gaining immense exposure and picking up lessons on design thinking and whatnot. We have been able to connect many children with such aspirational opportunities, like international essay competitions, national level music competitions, dance fellowships, junior football league experiences, quizzes, Olympiads, international arts exhibitions, and so on. Recently, we could also function as India outreach partners for Youth Forum Switzerland's Global Changemakers project. We could ensure more than 4,000 children were given awareness on UN SDG goals, and selected children across India also get to be part of this international leadership program. What started as an attempt to help 10 or 20 children has now gone up to the scale of thousands. I feel it is important to pave the way for children to grab on to their first opportunity early on in life, to make it a practice to dream, what if, and strive to make it a reality. This opportunity can be anything. It was a stepping stone into change making and social leadership for me. It could be your first step into arts or dramatics or sports. It could help you advance in science or innovation, philanthropy, community management, entrepreneurship, anything. Quoting my professor at college, I am that idiot who decided to leave a very comfortable job to pursue a road not taken. If I hadn't taken that leap to experience what an international leadership program holds, nothing would have changed in my life. Letting go of an opportunity is so easy. You may not even realize what you just did. But mustering the courage to grab one and follow through with conviction makes a huge difference. If you would take back anything from my story, it should be that motivation to step in and take charge of the story of your life. Stop being a spectator and be the scriptwriter. Now, I will leave you with my secret recipe to make most of the opportunities that come your way. It is tried and tested, and I promise This formula won't fail you. I simply call it the ABC of opportunities. A. Be authentic. No matter what you do, let your original self shine through. I started getting through to many avenues I aspired for only when I shed all inhibitions to bear my real self and let people see my authentic self. I am who I am. B. Start from the base. Small opportunities lead you to big ones. No experience is negligible. Your presence in smaller avenues builds your credibility to be part of bigger opportunities. C. Consistency is the key. For my personal and professional growth opportunities, I count more than 187 attempts and applications in the last year. I was successful only in a few, but I consistently keep trying. Now you have my secret recipe. But let me tell you the biggest secret when it comes to opportunities. Not many dare to give it a try. When opportunity knocks, a huge majority believes it is a waste of time and moves on with their life. The biggest difference your story and the alternate story you imagine lies within that decision to take the leap and open doors to new possibilities. Given to the tantalizing possibilities of a what if. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ashwati. Your message was truly awe-inspiring, and your words definitely left a mark on all of us. Thank you so much for joining us. We loved having you. So, next up for our next speaker, Mr.Aamir Ali Sultan is a playback singer, songwriter, composer, and performer. Best known for his hit albums Nanhi Pari, Ashik, and so many more, his experience in the industry tells a story of carving one's horizons through uncertainty and obstacles. Here to talk about exploring opportunities, learning, and navigating through mediocrity, we have Mr. Aamir Ali Sultan. Welcome, sir.
Maya Marina Mar Mara Mar Mar Gaya Sharir Maya Marina Mar Mara Mar Mar Gaya Sharir Asha Trishna ना मरी कह गए दास कभी. A person can die, but his dreams and his desires will never die. Hi guys, this is me, Aamir Ali Sultan, and it's been an honor and privilege for me to be on this prestigious stage of TEDx Talks. I would like to send thanks to the organizers for having me on board for this talk, for this conversation, wherein I'm getting connected to the lovely audience globally. Greetings to all of you. TEDx is known for ideas worth sharing. So this is me, Aamir, and I'm here to share my ideas which are definitely worth sharing with you all. To begin with, let me introduce myself. My name is Aamir Ali Sultan. I'm a playback singer, writer, composer, and a live performer working in the Indian film industry, commonly known as the Bollywood. And I come from a humble background from Bhagalpur, Bihar, a small town located on the banks of the river Ganga. My city is known worldwide for its silk productions, which is commonly known as the Silk City of India. To my achievements, I'm a verified artist on Spotify. I'm a verified artist on JioSaavn. A very popular magazine from the Gulf has covered an article on my journey, my success, my musical career. I've been judging frequently few of the most popular and biggest youth festivals of Asia. I've been working with almost all major labels in India when it comes to music. I've been featured in almost all music channels here in India. My songs are available on all platforms globally, whether it be Spotify, JioSaavn, Deezer, Apple Music. Well, to begin with, I won't be quoting any of the motivational speeches which are pretty much available on the internet. Rather, I'll be sharing my journey with you all. Firstly, the first idea and the first thought which I'd like to share with you guys is we should have a vision in our life. We should always have a goal. So once you set the goal, work for it. Start working for it. And success, what is success? For me, what do I believe success is like? For someone, success could be earning like millions of dollars. For some, success could be having an apartment. For some, success could be having a luxury car or something. So you should know what success and what's the definition of success in your books, in your thoughts. So set a vision, work for it, and when you feel like you have achieved it, then don't stop. Set a new vision and start working for it again and again. Now the second thing which I'd like to share with you guys, like, never be disheartened. Like, if somebody says you can't make it, you can't do, you are a loser, you won't be able to make this, you won't be able to achieve this, just don't listen to them. It's just because me being in particular talking about this is I've been hearing this through years and years. Like when I started, let me take you back to the memory lanes. I did my schooling from the prestigious St. Joseph's in Bhagalpur. In my school days, I was an average guy who used to be a backbencher, and mostly when there is a backbencher, all the mischiefs are pretty much associated with a backbencher. Like people think we won't be able to make it big in our lives. The same was the condition with me. Like I was been in the bad books of my teachers, I was never been recognized by any of them. But there was one person who always believed in me. Yes. And he was the principal of my school, Reverend Father Verghese Panangat. So today in my life, sitting here giving a TED talk to you guys, I owe all my success to my principal, Reverend Father Verghese Panangat. I owe all my success to my family, my brothers, Mr. Sultan Shadab, Mr. Sultan Faisal, Mr. Saif Ali, and my entire family. Whatever I am today is just because of my family. They have pushed me. They have worked hard for me. They have always motivated me against all odds of the societies. As I said you before on the beginning of this talk, like I come from a very small town in Bhagalpur. Having a dream of working in Bollywood is just a mockery. People laugh at you. When you say, I want to go to Bollywood, I want to work for this dream, I want to chase this, I want to pursue my passion, people laugh at you. When it comes to me sharing my ideas, people think like having on this platform, being so successful in life, it's easy. It's not at all easy. I know what all sacrifices I've made through. I know what all things I've missed in my life. I know how I have been through these years. It wasn't easy for me. It was not a cakewalk for me. I have worked really, really, really hard for this. So, plan something. You should have a plan, you should have a vision, you should have a goal. And once, when you set that goal, start working for it. Secondly, if somebody demoralizes you, like you won't be able to do this, it's just because they don't have the guts to do this. It's just because they couldn't do this. It's just because they are afraid. Like someone from their society, someone from their premises will go up, will rise up in their lives, will be an example for the society. So they don't want you to be that. They always work in such a way like you feel depressed, you feel demoralized, you feel humiliated at times. But trust me, don't listen to them. Listen to your heart, listen to your family, listen to your own people. Trust me, you will succeed in your life. Don't listen to the no-sayers. They are no one. You shouldn't be counting them in your lives. They shouldn't be standing in your life at any place or something. Now, secondly, push yourself. By saying that, by quoting that, what do I mean? I mean, once you achieve something in your life, don't sit idle. Don't just sit back and relax. Don't sit back and relax. Work for it. Set a new goal. Start working for it. There are plenty of things to achieve in the life. Moving ahead to my next point is like you shouldn't be disheartened when you fail in your life. You shouldn't be disheartened once you fail in your life. Failing is okay, it's absolutely perfect. A person who tries is the person who fails. Doesn't matter if you fail, doesn't matter if you are failing continuously. Just keep pushing, keep working. And trust me, It may sound a bit offbeat, but trust me guys, it's okay to be depressed at times. It's okay to fail in your life. It's okay to be average. Yeah. Nobody is born successful. Nobody is born so bright. We all work for it. We all work continuous. We practice. We make things happen. It's absolutely perfect to be average. It's absolutely perfect to fail in your life. It's absolutely perfect to be depressed at times. By saying that, I never meant like you shouldn't be working hard, you shouldn't be positive. I'm not talking anything fantasy. I'm just talking what is practical in life, what I've seen over these years. It's okay to fail. Failing doesn't mean that you can't ever succeed in your life. No, you can, definitely, for sure. I am one of the examples of those things. A person who tries is the person who fails. So if you're failing in your life, never be disheartened. It's absolutely perfect if you fail. It's absolutely perfect if you get depressed at times. Yeah, it's natural. Come on, we are all human beings. It happens. But what next? After that comes two things in your life. Either you could be a good example for the society, else you could be a bad example for the society. When I say you could be a bad example for the society, what do I mean? What do I literally mean? What I mean is when you fail, when you give up, when people mock at you, when people laugh at you, and there comes a time when you feel like, okay, ab mere se nahi ho payega. I won't be able to do this. It's all done. I'm giving it up. No, never do that. Stand up. Work for it. You can do it. Nothing is impossible, my bro. Nothing is impossible. I'm one of such examples who made this line true. Like nothing is impossible. Dude, you can do it. Definitely you can do it. Be a good example. Come on, wake up. You can be a good example. Now moving forward to the last point is never say no to any opportunity. Never ever say no to any opportunity. Yes. Now when I say never say no to any opportunity, I'm quoting this with my reference. And then I'll be concluding it with some of the ideas what you can do when an opportunity knocks your door. When I was in my hometown Bhagalpur, I gave an audition for being an RJ, and trust me, I didn't know the ABC of what RJ does. I didn't know the ABC of what radio jockeying is. I didn't know the ABC of this entire scene. But I tried it. I gave my way out. I auditioned for it. I tried it, and trust me, I was one of the best RJs the town has ever seen. Then when it all came to my musical career, I started my journey as a singer. Then somehow or the other, the universe gave me an opportunity to work in a film as a music composer, music director. Back then, I didn't know what music composition is all about, how to compose, how to make the music for the film. But I never said no. I said, yes, I would do this. I would love to do this. Yeah, I tried it. I didn't know. Then once the movie got released, I got the appreciation. And then it was when I realized, oh, I could be a good music composer as well. It's there in me. Then after that, it all started with writing the lyrics. I used to call the guys to write the lyrics for my song, to write the notes for my song. Some of them at times were busy, they couldn't write it. So I tried my hands in writing as well. I was like, okay, मैं try करता हूँ, मैं लिख के देखता हूँ. And I was like, okay, I can write. No, I'm being paid for this thing. I'm a paid writer today. So I became an RJ by saying no to the opportunity. If I would have said no, I couldn't be an RJ. If I could have said no, I couldn't be a singer. The same goes, the list continues. I wouldn't have been a composer, neither a writer or something. So never ever say no to any opportunity coming to your way, knocking your door. Never ever say no. Always be up with your open heart, with your open hands, and take it down, man. You can do it. Why you can't? Either you will do it or you will learn it. As simple as that. So always be open to all the opportunities which comes your way. Yes. And trust me guys, you should push your limits. You should push your limits. Once you push your limits, you will achieve plenty and plenty of success in your lives. To conclude the video, I would like to thank each and every one of you for joining me. I would like to thank the organizers for having me on board. I would like to thank my family, my brothers, my well-wishers, my friends, my schoolmates, my principal, Reverend Father Vagis Panangat, all my dear friends, all my well-wishers who have been a continuous support throughout my journey. And last but not the least, a sweet message to all of you. Stop complaining, guys. Stop complaining and start working on your dreams and be the reason for someone's smile. Thank you so much. This is me, Aamir Ali Sultan, signing off. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Aamir, for what was a real eye-opener and a great insight on how we can push to become better versions of ourselves. Thank you so very much, sir. Now for our final winner of the MEC Unplugged event, we have Shreyas Rajendran, who will be taking us through a beautiful vocal journey. So over to that now.
This house, she's holding secrets. I got my change behind the bed. In a coffee can, I throw my nickels in, just in case I have to leave. And I will go if you ask me to. I will stay if you dare. And if I go, I'm going shameless. I let my anger take me there. This house, she's quite the talker. She creaks and moans, she keeps me up. And the photographs know I'm a liar, but they just laugh as I burn it down. And I will go if you ask me to. And I will stay if you dare. And if I go, I'm going on fire. I let my anger take me there. The shingles, man, they're shaking. The back door's burning through. This house, she's quiet, the keeper. Quiet, the keeper of you. And I will go if you ask me to. And I will stay if you dare. And if I go, I'm going on fire. I let my anger take me there.
Wow, that was truly an amazing performance. Thank you so much, Shreyas, for joining us today. I'm sure the audience absolutely loved it. So, our final speaker for today is a filmmaker, a film editor, and a teacher. Mr. Unni Vijayan is a two-time National Film Award recipient, and today he focuses on his real passion, that's script writing. Here to talk about how he carved through his horizon in his field and to teach us the lessons that he's learned along the way, we have Mr. Unni Vijayan.
If you were ever to visit my childhood neighborhood and were to ask somebody about me, in most probability that person would say, that little quiet boy, we thought he would be a doctor. Well, that was what I was destined to be. My father, my sister, my brother-in-law, all of them were doctors. So what would a 10-year-old boy want to be? Yeah, of course, a doctor. And so that was what I set out to be. I was all clear about my horizon. The horizon seemed perfectly well etched for me, simple and clear. And then college happened. I went to college, and then suddenly science seemed so unreal. Why am I studying thermodynamics? Why is calculus happening? So I started sliding down in my academics. I failed in my examination miserably. My parents were very reassuring. They told me to go ahead and attempt once more. But then I had dug up a pit and I was quite comfortable in it. While all my friends had made plans, they had joined for medicine and engineering. Here I was, loafing around, drinking, talking about girls. The horizon now seemed a little blurred. It was almost disappearing. I was sinking into the song, and the bog had reached up to my nose. That's when my mother pulled me out of it and took me to Kochi. Kochi was a city, an entirely new city for me. I actually wanted to hate it, but it was an interesting city. I found it quite nice. I joined Cochin College and joined for zoology. Yeah, zoology, yeah, science again. But then I had done away with maths, so yeah. But here I found the students quite interesting. They were quite involved in politics. I found them quite disturbed about the country, and they were all set about doing something about it. And so this whole idea interested me about changing the world, and so I joined the Communist Party. Personally, it brought in a lot of change in me. I felt more responsible towards my surrounding, and that made me a political being. I gave up zoology and I took up philosophy. I joined the university and took up my degree. I took up philosophy because I felt that I should not study something for a career. So this subject was something which would never fetch me a job. That was my thinking at that time. Meanwhile, I was also trying to experiment with ways to express myself. I tried painting, but then I realized that I did not really have a talent for it. And then something happened which really opened up a new horizon for me. It was 1988, I clearly remember. And Doordarshan at that time was showing some late night films every Friday. So one of those Fridays, I was watching a film, and then this film really shook my very being. It was The Stalker by Andrei Tarkovsky. This film, till now, for me, film was purely for entertainment. I thought films were made for entertainment. But here was a film which was trying to disturb me. Here was a film which was engaging me in a philosophical discourse. So, Andrei Tarkovsky, I watched all his 7 films. And 7 Fridays later, I decided that I wanted to be a filmmaker. And I was 19. So I finished my graduation. I set out to watch serious films, seriously. After my graduation, I started applying for FTI. FTI was the only institution at that time, Film and Television Institute of India, was the only institution at the time for filmmaking, and it had only 10 seats. So when I applied for the first time, I failed. Well, I took it very positively, and I applied again next year. I failed again. Suddenly, I got very depressed, despondent, and I gave up and I took up a job. My parents till then were so despondent about me trying to be a filmmaker, suddenly gleefully took up this opportunity, got me married. A year later, I had a daughter. And so I, who had set out to be a filmmaker, was now saddled with a job, a wife, and a kid. Well, the horizon slowly blurred again. And I slowly set out to live a life of trapness. But my wife understood what I really wanted to do and goaded me. She asked me to prepare once again. So I got again enthusiastic and started preparing for the entrance examinations. And on the fourth attempt, I got through. When I entered the hallowed portals of FTI, I felt that was the place where I really belonged. 2 years of watching films, talking about films, living cinema, editing, and the whole camaraderie that I developed, which even lasts even till today. I majored in film editing and I stepped out into the world. I was all ready to take over the world when I realized this world is not what I know. It's a digital one. I had never switched on a computer in my life. Film editing had totally shifted to software-driven ones. They're called non-linear editing. The editing I knew was tactile, touch, film. For me, cut and paste was not Control X and Control V. It was actually cutting. It was gluing, pasting, using Scotch tape. And so here I was in a world which I did not know, and nobody was ready to touch me. Months went by without a job until a small-time studio owner took me in. Well, he took in because he himself was not able to find anybody. And so I joined him. He taught me how to use a non-linear software. I started working 7 days a week. It was tough. It was the toughest time, I should say. I used to work continuously 7 days a week, work 2 days in a row, come back home, take a shower, go back to the studio again. Well, that was the time when I was lowest in my self-esteem. I almost gave up. And I wanted to give up this whole thing called film editing. The horizon seemed very grey and uninteresting. And then, at the time, a ray of hope peeped in. I got the news that I got the National Award for film editing. That gave me a huge fillip. I moved from Chennai back to Mumbai. I became a really busy editor. I started doing a lot of television shows, documentaries, some independent films. I joined production houses, channels. I should mention I was part of Pogo, and I was really popular with kids because I knew it raw. So everything was going good for me. I had my own flat in Mumbai. Both had good jobs. Kids were going to good schools. What was I missing? It's the horizon. I can't see it. Is it because of the tall buildings in Mumbai? Or is it the fog? Is it the pollution? Or is it something that I'm doing? What am I doing? I'm planning my own career. I'm paying my EMIs, having a good job, planning for weekend getaways. This was not what I wanted to do. Then 10 years back, my cousin called me and said, Unni, let's make a film. I looked out of the window and I felt the mist clearing and I could see a new horizon once again. I moved to Bangalore and I worked on my first feature film, Lessons in Forgetting. And I worked with stalwarts like Adil Hussain, Anita Nair, Ganesh Kumaresh, Malay Bhattacharya. Great in what they were doing. And it was a learning in the process for me. The film went across the globe with festivals and it was much appreciated. And I also got a national award in 2012. What happened next is a little strange. I joined my cousin in his IT company as an HR manager. I was into appraisals, employee engagement, whatnot. People would ask me only, what are you doing? Some of my employees would ask me, what are you doing, sir? I would smile. So, okay, I like this job. It pays my bills. I had a new house. I had a brand new AMI. My wife would chide me. What happened to your dreams? I would shrug it off. Okay, I'll do it. Give me some time. But slowly I realized the horizon had changed and it was not so great or interesting. Finally, I quit 3 years back. But I was all lost in this new city, Bangalore. I did not know anybody. I didn't know what to do. The last film I did was 7 years back. So I decided to start again, to teach. I started as a faculty, visiting faculty in colleges, private institutions. When I started doing this, I realized that I knew so little about what I want to teach. To teach, I had to learn. So I went back to my basics. I again started watching films, the classics, the contemporaries, the experimentals. I started reading about them. That was a humbling experience. I realized that I knew so little about them. All I was doing was chasing my own career. I was not pursuing cinema, I was pursuing my own career. For me, the horizon that I knew was not that of cinema, but it was of my own achievements, my own aspirations. Horizons come in different shapes, different hues. When you're young, you should never lose sight of your horizon, not even for a moment. But as you grow older, you should keep checking whether the horizon is there actually, or is it just a mirage, a reflection of yourself. I started to look back for 30 years what I wanted to do. I went back to 30 years and I started reading on philosophy. I started reading philosophy in films. Interestingly, some time back, I sat down to watch all the 7 films of Andrei Tarkovsky. All the 7 films. And I realized surprisingly, it was talking to me differently. So you see, these are films which talk to a 19-year-old and a 50-year-old differently. And that is the greatness of cinema.
Thank you so much, Mr. Unni Vijayan, for your wonderful words and your wonderful message. We learned a lot more about the importance of carving our own horizons in this world and gave us a lot to think about. So thank you. And finally, we have reached the end of TEDxMEC 2020. You have been an absolutely wonderful and lovely audience, and we loved having you. And we hope that you enjoyed just as much as we did and learned a lot of new things along the way. Now, to extend his thanks, we have the licensee of TEDxMEC 2020 up in this platform. Welcome, Mr. Ajit Sivaram.
Hello everyone, I am Ajit Sivaram, the licensee for this year's TEDxMEC. It has really been a roller coaster of a year for all of us, and I am glad to say we have nearly made it through 2020. Right now, I stand before you to give my word of thanks to everyone who has been a part of TEDxMEC 2020. Firstly, I would like to thank the speakers who, despite their busy schedules, made time for us and recorded such amazing videos. Secondly, I would like to thank the whole TEDxMEC team who has worked tirelessly despite the various setbacks and unforeseen circumstances that plagued us throughout this year. Finally, I would like to thank each and every one of you who took their time to be here for us and support us. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I hope to see you all next year in person. Bye.